implicit in that is an understanding of who your customer is. And you mentioned that the CBD industry was not, or cannabis industry was not creating products that spoke to people like you. You seem like you have a very strong view of who your customer is. You understand their psychographics. And I don't know, how much of that was just you're building a product kind of for yourself and you assume that there are other people out there like you, which is kind of a common thing that folks will say when they're trying to kind of come up with an idea, versus like, what were some of the things maybe that you did to kind of learn the nuances of your customer and how they think?
I mean, listen, I have a marketing background and I wish I could say that I did all this research, but it was like, yeah. I had managed a brand for a millennial women's audience for years. Like that's not talks to millennial women.
Yeah.
And then I had been building and speaking to millennial women on Twitter, on Instagram. And I had this like market research at my fingertips every single moment, because if I tweeted out like at the start of the pandemic, who's sleeping? Like, what are your top 3 like issues right now?
Yeah.
And then we were already doing research on like, are people having sex right now during COVID?
Yeah.
And so when I think about when you're a founder, there's 2 types of founders. There's I'm a founder and I've always wanted to be a founder, and I go and I build and I exit, and then I take a sabbatical and then I go and I build and I exit. That's like one pedigree of founder.
Yep.
It's this other pedigree that I believe I am in, where I want to build something to change, impact a thing, a problem that affected me and the people near and close to me that I saw pattern recognition in.
Yeah.
And like, that is what happened. I just know this. If you look at the stats, moms as a category are drinking at a macro level. Alcohol consumption is going down. In this cohort, it's going up.
Interesting.
And so you can see that there is a need. And then when you look at the actual like space of cannabis, hemp is not federally regulated. So there are a lot of shitty products on the market.
Yeah.
And I experienced them. There were like somewhere the THC is not like fully controlled, and I would have to go to like a board meeting with bloodshot eyes, and I'm like, this is not okay.
Yeah.
This needs to be, there needs to be products that women can trust. And so that was the market research. It wasn't some like hard, I didn't go into like a library and start looking at consensus data.
Yeah. In the early days, brand seems like it's been a pillar from the very beginning. You made a bunch of investments in the packaging is very high quality. It doesn't have it's not green with a leaf or rainbow. It's it's very elevated. You made investments in swag, it seems like you've been very deliberate about every single kind of interaction or touch point that a customer would have with it. I'd be curious, how you went through that process and how maybe you thought, especially in the early days where you're resource constrained, and it can sometimes be difficult to make the kinds of investments that one wants to make. How you think about how you thought about the trade-offs and like early thinking about brands and where should one invest versus later. I'd just be curious to hear how you thought about that process.
Yeah, so I'll go through like very in the weeds. So I did a brand pyramid as the first exercise of the branding. Like, what is it going to feel like? What are the emotional benefits? And then like, what's at the top of the brand pyramid? What's like its essence, right?
Yeah.
Then I have like, I'm sure I could find it somewhere, like a 30 slide deck of like inspirational pictures. Then I actually mocked up what I want the logo to look like. And then I said, what are the foundational elements I need? Okay. One, I needed like a couple of slides so it looked good for like pitching.
Yeah.
I needed the logo. I needed the mark.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to have like a set of ads that I could like look at and have as like a guiding light. I got it to a place where I was basically on like the 10-yard line before I ever brought in a designer.
Got it.
Found a designer who was a former Pentagram designer, because I was like, I need somebody that's worked on Rent the Runway, Away. Like I knew exactly, I wanted to create a luxury millennial women's brand. So I needed a designer who had touched millennial luxury women's brands.
Yep.
Found this woman, Natalia. She's incredible, former Pentagram designer. And we had one call. We did 2 rounds of iterations. And then I had my brand guidelines.
Wow.
And it was so, because I had gotten it to a place where it was so crystal clear what I wanted. She just nailed it the first time. She was the one who came up with the like visual identity of the lines, where each pillar has a different set of lines.
Yep.
I knew the colors I wanted. She helped me kind of like finesse the actual Pantone, but like that was the start.
Yeah.
Then you start writing copy, right? So that you understand the voice and tone. So I remember I wrote the whole first page, hero and down, of how I would say it.
Yeah.
Sat down with a web designer, said, here's the brand guidelines and some assets. Here's the copy. Pull a Shopify site together using an existing template.
Yeah.
Did that. So it's like you just inch your way to it, but you have to start with some comps of like, what does it look and feel like and sound like? Then you're not spending money. And if you're not a brand marketer, if you're like, dev, spend time with marketers and like form an opinion of what you want your brand to be like, so that you're not spinning. And the last thing I would say about branding is that it is a growing thing. What you start with, it's never going to be pixel perfect.
Sure.
The voice and tone is going to change. You're going to learn who your audience is based on who starts buying your product and speaks to them maybe a little differently. And so like, if you were to talk to some of our copywriters, like they would be like, at the beginning, it was mostly Amanda's voice. Like it was how I talk. Yeah. Now it's elevated, and now it's a little bit more empowering and a little bit more like the way we do humor and wit is slightly different. It's less like corny, because like my mom jokes are a whole other level, but it grows, it changes, and you have to know that like, don't wait until it's like what you think is perfect to ship it.